Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Mid Speeds live class. We're going to start off with some common words and I will mute everyone. All right, here we go. Let's get our fingers going. Ready? Become, sheet, whatever, dollars, o'clock, bills, settlement, miss, mention, local, earliest, fit, receiving, arrived, pleasant, willing, advertising, doesn't, health, isn't, fire, shown, history, known, seemed, basis, definite, longer, sign, music, proposition, act, blank, follows, march, condition, searchers, answering, fat, important, effort, signed, couldn't, machine, plans, teaching, Wednesday, wrong, power, allow, quote, story, moment, maybe, expected, teach, 8, carefully, decide, 20, age, etc., women, spend, questions, anyone, university, fee, arrangement, realize, delivered, post, saying, may, touch, agree. All right. I have some consonant compounds that start with SKW. Here we go. The squad is on an overnight hike. Have you ever tried eating squid? She packed her things in a square box. They really were living in squalor. Use Italian squash in the recipe. Use the squeegee on the big window. Squeeze the juice of 1 lemon. She was given the ring by an Indian squaw. Tommy had a new squirt gun. The squadron is on active duty now. Oil the door so that it won't squeak. She will squeal with joy when she hears. All right, common phrases that are often heard, and you're going to phrase as much as possible. Here we go. That I wanted, that I was, that I would say, that is all, that is correct, that's correct, that is right, that's right, that shall, that should, that want, that was, that were, that will, that would, that you are, that you believe, that you believed, that you can, that you could, that you feel, that you felt, that you had, that you have, that you know, that you mean to, that you mean to say, that you recall, that you recalled, that you recollect, that you recollected, that you remember, that you remembered, that you shall, that you should, that you understand, that you want, that you wanted, that you were, that you would say, the president, the record, all the, are the, because of the. All right. Now I have some sentences that focus on the following briefs that you learned in theory: present, presence, proper, property, responsible, responsibility, respond, response. And here are your sentences. We noted the presence of Mr. Jones. Were you present at the meeting? How many were present? Mr. Foster was not present. Who is presenting the award? They presented a united front. The presence of acid was found. Present the design in the meeting. Flagrant abuses were present. Were you present at the conclave? Give him the deed to the property. Put your name on the property. Is it the property of the company? The properties are now in escrow. She owns the properties on this street. The properties border the lake. Is he responsible? He has taken a responsible position. We are not responsible. Did he respond to the letter? Will you respond right away? Are they responding in a timely fashion? Please respond. John is responding to the survey. She will not accept the responsibility. They could not fix the responsibility. He does not recognize his responsibilities. Can he accept these new responsibilities? Who is responsible for creating this havoc? He is simply irresponsible. Jerry is irresponsible, but he is young. Perhaps he will grow to accept his responsibilities. How many responses did you get? To be a responsible citizen, each of us must take the responsibility for his own actions, but we need not assume the responsibility for others. What is the proper way to do it? Is it proper to assume his responsibility? Who is responsible for the property? Did you get the presents I sent you? That is not the proper form. The margin is in proper alignment. It is improper to use a double negative. The responsibility falls on the property owner. All right. I have an Article A drill. I'm going to give you the phrases and then go into the sentences. Okay. All right, here we go. This is the Article A, and it also has prefix A words as well. Okay. So Article A, long A, as opposed to the short A for words that have the prefix A. Here we go. A ward, award. A tack, attack. A fresh, afresh. A way, away. A part, apart. A sort, asort. A sleep, asleep. A bet, a bet. A rose, a rose. A test, a test. A blaze, a blaze. A vow, a vow. A loan, a loan. A broad, a broad. A firm, a firm. A void, a void. A head, ahead. A tire, a tire. A piece, a piece. A cute, a cute. The roses bloomed afresh. He aided and abetted. Place a bet on number 4. I need a fresh start. I'm a ward of the court. This award was presented. It will fill a void. Avoid a confrontation. The hills were ablaze. A pyromaniac set a blaze. Give a part of it away. Sit apart from the rest. His attire is perfect. His car needs a tire. Pick a rose for tonight. Everyone arose in court. Hunt for a way to do it. The judge is away today. It was a cute puppy. It's acute colitis. I want a head on my beer. Go ahead with a summation. Use a tack to fasten it. It is subject to attack. Run along quickly. Take a long look. It is a firm of renown. He affirmed his position. Attest to my signature. I hate to take a test. Read it aloud to me. Read in a loud voice. A lone figure stood there. He came to court alone. Purchase a cord of wood. We are truly in accord. All right. Names and addresses. I'm going to spell the last names as well. All right, here we go. Kelly M. King, K-I-N-G, Tomaria High School, Tomaria, Wisconsin, 53048. Mr. James L. Kennedy Jr., Kennedy, 34 Southview Lane, Hopewell, New York, 12530. Ms. Rhonda B. Jagnow, Jagnow, Victor Central School, Victor, New York, 14530. Mrs. Diana A. Russell, Russell, Newark Senior High School Library, 110 Wright Street, Newark, Ohio, 43050. Ms. Pauline G. Norwood, Ms. Pauline G. Dorward, Dorward, Department of Bureau Employment Services, 1100 Cleveland Avenue North, Canton, Ohio, 44710. Belmore Memorial Library, 2280 Bedford Avenue, Belmore, New York, 11710. Attention Mona Corman, Korman. Miss Helen C. Albertson, Albertson, 2339 Northwest Avenue, Vinland, New Jersey, 08360. Catherine M. Homer, Homer, Amherst Central Senior High School, 4301 Main Street, Amherst, New York, 14256. Ms. Deborah A. Anton, Anton, Vescal Chemical Corporation, 2959 East Ohio Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60612. All right. We're going to end our drills with a finger dexterity drill. Okay, here we go. Ready? Wheeze, pluck, swear. Skill, club, plead. Globe, tray, glass. Dress, dredge, wheel. Soft, stunt, chop. Trade, spleen, clean. Flung, sky, snug. Swore, drop, string. Sneak, splash, tribe. Plus, stud, draw. Drug, split, stroke. Grant, drift, splurge. Snatch, brawl, slug. Groom, thrash, glint. Trial, draft, glob. Plain, stitch, plug. Shake, gleam, dwell. Straight, glare, switch. All right, moving into jury charge. The subject is assault and battery, and the brief for that is SAUB. You're also going to hear consummation. I don't have a brief for that, so you'll have to write it out unless you have one. Grievous, bodily harm, apprehension, peril, felonious, invasion, reasonably, which it can be written RAENL, come back for long E, or AE. All right, here we go. I'm going to start this. I'll start this at 120 and I'll work my way to 160, all right? Where an unlawful trespass is being committed upon the property of another, the owner may lawfully use the amount of force which is necessary under the circumstances for the protection of his property, either real or personal. However, he will be guilty of assault if he uses excessive force or any force after the necessity, therefore, is past. To justify a resort to force in defense of property, the danger should be such as to induce one exercising reasonable and proper judgment to interfere to prevent the consummation of the injury. Throwing a stone which is capable of inflicting grievous bodily harm at a person, even though such person is a trespasser, constitutes an assault if the purpose was to commit grievous bodily harm. Ordinarily, one who is in possession of premises lawfully and who has requested or ordered another to leave, whom he had a right to so request, may lawfully use as much force as is necessary to remove such other, after allowing him a reasonable time to depart, and the trespasser may not resist, if only reasonable force and agencies are used or employed in making such ejection. This right applies to any property lawfully in possession. However, anyone ejecting a trespasser will be guilty of assault if he uses more force than is necessary, as when he uses a dangerous or deadly weapon, unless the trespass is made with hostile intent and actual force. The general rule is that the owner may use only such force as is necessary to eject the trespasser. A man may not use a deadly weapon to resist a mere trespass, but he may resist the trespass with sufficient force. If, while so resisting, he has reasonable ground for believing that he himself is in personal danger, then he may use a weapon to defend himself and his property. It is clear that a man has no right to commit an assault with intent to do great bodily harm to another for a wrong that he does not have reasonable ground to believe to be dangerous to himself. If a person honestly believes or has reason to believe that he is in great peril and that great bodily harm is about to be inflicted upon him, he has a right to act under such well-grounded apprehension and may use a weapon, even though the danger does not in fact exist. However, in the absence of a felonious invasion of one's property, that is, in the absence of an invasion with intent to commit the crime of felony thereon, one does not have the right to inflict serious bodily injury in the defense of property interest alone. The defendant in this case, after requesting the plaintiff to leave the premises, had the right to use reasonable force to eject him, but no more force than was necessary or reasonably necessary. If in protecting his land from trespass only, he intentionally inflicted grievous bodily harm upon the plaintiff and was not himself in reasonable fear or danger or bodily harm to himself, then he committed a wrongful assault upon the plaintiff. All right. Moving on to literary. This is on the Navy and nuclear power. And I'm going to start, I'll start this at 120 and work my way to 140. Okay, here we go. Naval nuclear power has a long, proud history, starting with USS Nautilus in 1955 and continuing through the New Virginia attacks, submarines, and Ford-class super carriers operating throughout the world today. Nuclear power provides the Navy with near limitless power to operate submarines and aircraft carriers wherever needed in the world. The qualifications are demanding, but for a select few, the rewards are unsurpassed. Making the grade takes effort, even from the most qualified, but the feeling of making it to the top is unequaled. Qualifying nuclear sailors receive an enlistment bonus. If you want responsibility and are capable of working under pressure, join the Navy's nuclear field program. the new generation of naval vessel ushered in by USS Nautilus, the SSN 571 in 1955, is still leading the way. The nuclear-powered vessels of today's Navy are larger and faster and advanced beyond the wildest dreams of the first nuclear sailors. The commissioning ceremony of USS Ohio, the SSBN 726, on November 11th, 1981, was a milestone for the nuclear Navy. Ohio, the first ship of the Trident class, was the largest and most powerful U.S. submarine ever built. The future of the Navy submarine force will rely on the very latest technology as the Seawolf Virginia class and Los Angeles class submarines take their place in the fleet. These weapons and the crews that man them will lead the submarine force into the 21st century with confidence and power. With all of the Navy's aircraft carriers and submarines powered by nuclear energy, there are plenty of opportunities for those who wish to excel in this career field. If you are a mature person, ready to accept responsibility and capable of working well under pressure, you may be on your way to qualifying for the Navy's nuclear field program. Qualifying nuclear sailors have the opportunity to select their own enlistment incentive, the best available to any Navy program. You may choose a college fund, an enlistment bonus, or a combination of the enlistment bonus and Navy College Fund. If you are up to the challenge, the choice is yours. Training. Once accepted into the Naval Nuclear Power Program, you will enter the Navy as an E3, already ahead of many of your counterparts in other fields. Your first step will be to complete basic training in Great Lakes, Illinois. During this 2-month program, you will be training with new sailors from many other fields and programs. After completing recruit training, you will travel to Charleston, South Carolina for Nuclear Fields, NF, A School. You will live in college dorm style rooms with recreational activities at the base for your initial training in your specialty. Depending on the rating for which you are selected, you will spend from 3 to 6 months in NFA school. Upon graduation, you may be advanced to Petty Officer 3rd Class E4. While you will be quite busy with your studies in Charleston, there will still be opportunities to explore this historic city. Founded in 1670 as Charlestown, the city has been or has seen much change, including relocation from the first location 3 miles up the Ashley River. Charleston is a town that embraces the future, making it a perfect home for the Navy's nuclear training schools. All right, we'll stop there. There's more, but I'll finish that in the morning. All right, how are we doing on time? Good. Okay, I'll give you one more piece of literary, and then we will move into our Q&A. This is Welcome to Bodie. All right, here we go. And I'll bump this to 140 and move my way to 160, okay? This is Bodie, or rather what remains of Bodie. Today, only about 5% of the buildings remain from the town's 1877 to 1881 heyday, most having fallen victim to time, fire, and the elements. Designated a California state park in 1962, it is now preserved in a state of arrested decay. This means that buildings' roofs, windows, and foundations are repaired and stabilized, not restored. Following the 1849 gold rush, mining declined among the western slope of the Sierra Nevada. Prospectors, ever hungry for the next big strike, crossed the Sierra Nevada to prospect the eastern slopes. W.S. Bodie from New York discovered gold here in 1859. He died several months later in a blizzard, never seeing the town that honors him. Bodie's bones were rediscovered in 1879 and then misplaced after burial. His final resting place is now thought to be somewhere on the hill above the cemetery. The town's name came to be spelled Bodie. Mining in the district progressed at a slow pace until 1875, when a mine collapse revealed a rich body of gold ore. Word spread fast, and Bodie's boomtown days began. While period accounts estimated Bodie's population as high as 8,000, and later writers claimed 10,000, census records do not reflect these high numbers. Bodie's peak population probably ranged from 7,000 to 8,000. During 1877 to 1881, Bodie's mining district included 30 different mines and 9 stamp mills. Along with miners and merchants, Bodie attracted a rougher element who gave the town a reputation for bad men and wild times. There were more than 60 saloons, many near Bonanza Street prostitutes, cribs, and opium dens in Chinatown. The boom years were over quickly as unsuccessful mines began closing. The population dropped quickly and continued to dwindle until the 1900s. Mining continued until 1942. The family of Bodie's last major landowner, James S. Kane, hired caretakers to watch over the town and protect it from looters and vandals. In 1962, California State Parks purchased the town to preserve the historic buildings and artifacts. When you visit Bodie today, you experience slices from the town's different time periods. You'll see houses that were built in the 1870s, the Standard Mill from the late 1890s, gas pumps from the 1920s, and a schoolhouse that was used until 1942. Some buildings are named according to past functions, others for the people who lived there, whether the first, the last, or most notable. Enjoy Bodie's past and visit our museum for information about tours and talks. All right, so now let's move into some Q&A. This is a type of drill, but it uses our Lightboard, and it's going to be different questions, different answers, and there really is no pattern, so that's why it's more challenging. And it's more like short questions and short answers. Okay, so it's all over the place. It doesn't really follow a pattern, so it just teaches you to focus on what you hear, write what you hear, even though maybe it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to start this at 140 and 120. I'll work my way to 140. Okay, It's strictly plaintiff and answer. Here we go. We are going to the beach. It's such good weather at the moment. Okay. How stupid you are. You left the keys in the door overnight. I'm sorry. Would you like a cup of coffee? No, thank you. How nice of you to come to wish me a happy birthday. You're welcome. I can give you a chunk of cheese for the children. Gross. You aren't 21, are you? No, ma'am. You aren't from America, are you? Yes, I am. Don't be silly. You are silly. Is there any work to do in the garden? Certainly. Always listen to your parents. No way. There are no buses today. Why? You don't like ice cream, do you? Of course I do. Who has eaten a bar of chocolate? I have. Have a cup of tea. Perfect. Do sit down. Where? You aren't going to Rome, are you? Not now. I'll help you. Give me a piece of your luggage. Here. My son has finally passed his driving test. What a relief. Oh no. Andrew paints so well. I'm sure he is going to become a famous artist. I know. My garden has been completely spoiled by the storm. What a disaster. I'm sorry. Don't smoke in your room. I won't. There isn't any ketchup on the table. Where is it? You don't know her, do you? I don't think so. Can I have some lemonade, please? It's gone. Drive to the end of the street and turn left. Then go where? Insert a coin. Then what? Don't open the window. It's hot. You haven't been on vacation, have you? Never. John has a big house. I think it's a bit ridiculous. I don't. You haven't got a car, have you? Yes, I do. I'm going to the baker's. I need a loaf of bread. What kind? Shut the door. I already did. So as you can see, it doesn't follow any pattern, but it forces you to write exactly what you hear. So, all right. So I'm going to give you another Q&A. This is going to strictly be defense. Actually, oh, no, the court and the plaintiff does come in, but defense is questioning. All right. And I'm going to start at 120 and I will work my way to 160. Here we go. You have talked about people being in the street around the bank and north of the bank and around the bonfire. Were there any people wandering around south of the bank? As far as I know, there were just people walking around the bank all night long. You have testified that you didn't know any of the people who were throwing rocks. That's true. Aside from that, roughly how many people did you encounter that evening that you knew? Oh, approximately 15, I think. I'm not sure. And you talked to them? Yes, I did. And they were sort of wandering around as you were? Yes, they were. Among the 15 or so that you say you knew, did any of them throw any rocks? I didn't see them throwing any rocks. Was there much foot traffic to the south of the bank? Were there people milling around on the street? At various time periods, yes. Sometimes the street was clear, would you say? Sometimes, yes. You were standing across from the bank, is that correct? That's correct. At one time, there was a considerable group of people between you and the bank? Yes. At that time, did you hear any breaking glass? I heard breaking glass for quite a long period of time. Was the crowd tightly packed or dispersed? At times it was tight, and at times it was loose. Well, could you have seen through the crowd in order to see who was pitching the rocks at the time you heard glass breaking? If they were in the street, yes. If they had not been in the street but were on the curb, could you have seen them? I think so. I am tall. I can generally see over most people. Although you heard glass breaking, you didn't see anyone pitching a stone. I would see arms go up and rocks let loose. You would see that? Yes, I would. Were you able to see who these people were? I tried not to. Why not? That's a very hard question to answer. I didn't want to assist the police in putting anyone in jail. It's that simple. I have been in jail myself, and I just can't see it. You are saying that at a certain time, you did hear glass breaking, and you say that you saw arms raised throwing stones at the glass, but you avoided seeing who was doing this. At times I did see the people who were throwing them, but I didn't know them. I had never seen them before. I just moved in this community. If it were someone you did know, could you have seen him at all times? If I had been keeping an eye on him? Well, not if you had been keeping an eye on him. Just simply, in the course of standing there, would you have been able to identify everyone who threw an object at the time that the glass was breaking? Would you restate your question, please? Objection. That is compound. Sustained. Restate the question. Well, were there times when glass was being broken that you didn't see someone throwing an object? Yes, quite a few times. Quite a few times. I would hear the sound of glass breaking, and I would turn around, and there would be a broken window. Of course, I hadn't seen who had thrown the stone. You say you would have had no hesitancy about identifying David Albright in this proceeding because it is an informal proceeding. Is that correct? Yes. You know this proceeding could result in the termination of Dr. Albright? Yes, I know. All right. Now, moving into another transcript. This is from court. And we're going to start off with some colloquy, but then plaintiff will be questioning. And I'm going to start this at 120 and move my way to 160. Here we go. All right. People versus Henry Lawson, or is it Kyle Smith? It's Kyle Smith. Okay, Kyle Smith. Mari Brown appearing on behalf of the people. Good morning. How are you doing, sir? Sabrina, I am Sabrina Seitz on behalf of Mr. Smith, present before the court in custody. This is the time set for the preliminary hearing. Are both sides ready? Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Brown, you may call your first witness. Wait, move to exclude witnesses. Do we have any witnesses here? Yes, we would be designating Detective Hearns as our investigating officer. Okay, and then we have Deputy Johnson as our gang expert. Okay, you're asking that the gang expert sit through the testimony? Yes, Your Honor. and I would object to that. I'm assuming that Deputy Johnson has already reviewed all the discovery and that nothing new is going to come out of him sitting here listening to all the testimony that's going to be given. That's assuming. We don't assume. The objection is overruled. Ms. Brown, the people call Detective Hearns. You do solemnly state that the evidence you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Please state and spell your full name for the record. Jason Hearns, JASONHEARNS. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Counsel. Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Detective Hearns. Good morning. What is your occupation? I am a detective with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department assigned to the Santa Barbara station. And how long have you been employed as a sworn law enforcement officer? For approximately 17 years. Were you on duty on September 24th of 2014 at approximately 3:30 p.m.? Yes, I was. And at that approximate time, did you make contact with Anthony Gates? Yes, I did. Where? At a residence across the street from Harold Park. And is Harold Park located within Santa Barbara County? Yes, it was, or yes, it is. During your contact with Mr. Gates, did you make any observations of him? Yes, I did. What did you observe? I observed, a black male adult lying in the doorway of a residence. I later learned that his name was Anthony Gates, upon him telling us that when I asked him, he was lying in a pool of blood, and he had what appeared to be several gunshot wounds to his upper body. Based on his Mr. Gates' condition, was he transported shortly after your contact with him? He was transported shortly after via air ambulance. Do you know where he was taken? I don't recall the initial location where he was taken. On October 21st of 2014, did you recontact Anthony Gates? I'm sorry, what was the date? October 21st of this year. Yes, I did. Where was it that you made contact with Mr. Gates at that time? Well, it was at his residence. And did you ask Mr. Gates about what happened at Harold Park on September 24th, 2014? Yes, I did. What did he tell you happened? He told me that Trigger shot him. I'm sorry, what did you say? I said he told me that Trigger shot him. Did he tell you who Trigger was? He just knew him as Kyle, but he calls him Trigger. Okay, did he tell you where the shooting took place? He told me that the shooting took place in Harold Park. Did he tell you the circumstances of the shooting? Briefly, he explained an ongoing problem between the two of them, between Trigger and himself. And he explained or told me that Trigger had gone into had left the location across the street from Harold Park, and he fled into, who is he? I'm sorry, he goes by Tony Anthony Gates. Anthony Gates fled into the park, and a few moments later, he was approached by Trigger, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith fired multiple shots from a handgun at him, striking him. Did Mr. Gates tell you that he had had words with Trigger prior to the shooting? He had said that they had spoken prior to the shooting across the street. Did Mr. Gates tell you specifically where he was located when he and Trigger had the words prior to the shooting. I don't recall if he said the exact location. I may have put that in my statement with him. Did Mr. Gates tell you how much time passed between the exchange of words with Trigger and when he was shot by Trigger in the park? It was just a few moments, a few minutes. It was enough time for him to, who is him? It was enough time for Mr. Gates to run to the park, and which was directly across the street. It's only a few hundred yards away. Did Mr. Gates tell you once he was in the park when it was that he first saw Trigger in the park? The first time that he saw Trigger, the first time Mr. Gates saw Trigger in the park was in the middle of the park, and that's when he was shot. Did Mr. Gates tell you that he was walking through the park and he turned around and saw Trigger with a gun in his hand? He was walking through the park and he saw Trigger with a gun in his hand, and then he said that Trigger fired at him or shot at him. And at that point, he said that he turned and he ran from there, not realizing that he had actually been shot until a few moments later when he was having difficulty breathing. And at this point, it was about the parking lot on the north edge of Herald Park. That's about when he realized that he had been shot. Did Mr. Gates tell you how far Trigger was from him when Trigger shot at him? Yes, he did. What did he say? He said that he was approximately 15 feet. Did Mr. Gates tell you how many times Trigger fired the gun at him? I don't recall if he said specifically how many rounds. I don't recall if he said he knew how many rounds that Trigger had fired at him. Do you recall Mr. Gates telling you that he was shot 5 to 6 times? I'm sorry. Do you recall Mr. Gates telling you that he was shot at 5 to 6 times? I don't recall him saying that. However, if I put it in my report, if I can look at that to refresh your recollection or my recollection, would it refresh your recollection if you looked at that portion of your report? Yes, it sure would. With the court's permission, Your Honor? Sure, go ahead. What page was that on? That would be page number 1 of the supplemental. I don't seem to have the supplemental in this folder. What was the date of the supplemental at the bottom? I have an idea. Why don't you just show him what you're referring to? That's fine. Did you take a look at your report? Yes, I did. Is your recollection now refreshed? Yes, it is. Did Mr. Gates tell you how many times Trigger shot at him? Gates said 5 to 6 times. During the course of your investigation, did you also have the opportunity to make contact with Kyle Smith? Yes, I did. Do you see Kyle Smith here in court today? Yes, I do. Could you please identify him for the record? He's seated next to his defense attorney in an orange Santa Barbara County jumpsuit. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Kyle Smith. Any objection? No objection. All right, thank you. The record will so reflect. Where was it that you initially made contact with Kyle Smith? In Portland, Oregon. Why is it that you made contact with Mr. Smith there? Mr. Smith had been arrested in Portland and was had been booked in a local jail in that area. We were given the paperwork to go pick him up. And it was, was that the date of that contact with Mr. Smith? October 14th of 2014? I'm sorry, did you say October 14th? Yes. No, I believe that it was, is it November 14th? Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at your report? It was October 15th, October 14th, I believe, that we flew out there. It was on the 15th, on Friday. We contacted him on the second day. So sometime in October, you made contact with Mr. Smith out of state. Is that correct? Yes, I believe that the 14th was a Thursday. The 15th was a Friday, if I recall correctly. It was the second day. We arrived on a Thursday and we picked him up on Friday afternoon. Okay, at some point after your contact with Mr. Smith, did you interview him? Yes, I did. Prior to interviewing him, did you advise him of his Miranda rights? Yes, I did. And how did you do that? Well, initially we had caught a plane flight from Oregon, the first leg of it, to Portland, Oregon. Let me stop you 1 second. In advising the defendant of his Miranda rights, did you read it off your department-issued Miranda card? At the time, no, I didn't. Okay, did you advise him of his rights based on your memory of what your department-issued Miranda card says? Yes, we realized that we were in Portland, Oregon, and I had wanted to talk to Mr. Smith, and I was looking out for his best interests. And I read him his rights and then told him that I didn't want to speak to him at this moment because we were inside the airport and there were lots of people around us, and I didn't want him talking about guns and shooting people inside an airport. You just stated that you read the defendant his rights. I told him his rights. Okay, and what did you tell the defendant with regard to his rights? That he had the right to remain silent and that anything that he said can be used against him in a court of law. He had the right to an attorney before and during questioning. If he couldn't afford an attorney, one would be appointed to him by the court free of charge. After you advised the defendant of those rights, did you ask him any questions? I asked him if he understood those rights and if he would be willing to speak to me. What did Mr. Smith tell you when you asked him if he understood those rights? He told me that yes, he did understand and he wanted to speak to me. And he kept trying to tell me what was going on. And I told him, look, I don't want to talk to you about this right here around everybody. If you would like, you could write down a statement of what happened while on the plane, and that way we didn't have to discuss this right now around passengers. And then we left it at that. All right, so I'm going to change transcripts for the last 4 minutes. Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm going to continue at 160, okay? All right, here we go. You mentioned a family problem. Was that with Mr. Bueller? At that time, I don't believe I was with Mr. Bueller, but he was harassing me. In what way was he harassing you? Calling me on my cell phone and bothering me. Would he call you at work? Yes. Would he call you at your place of residence? Yes. You described family problems. Would that be involving him? A family problem could have been my mother or my father being in the hospital. What is your mother's name? Mariella. How do you spell that? Mariella. Is that one word? Yes. And her last name? Jessen. The spelling of that name? Jessen. Is she still living? Yes. And your father's name? Hugh. Jessen. Okay. And is he still living? Yes. In April 2009, approximately 1 month anyway, of the date of the accident, were you having any family problems, or were they being your parents, having any family problems? No. Were they having any health problems which caused any anxiety to you? No. And is that also correct up to January 1 of 2010? Yes. And by way of explanation, I think you indicated in 2010 you felt some family pressure. My father would go in the hospital. It's possible that at that time he was in the hospital. Do you know when he went into the hospital after April 8, 2009? About a year. And for what reason did he go into a hospital, if you know? Emphysema. And into what hospital was he admitted? Kaiser in Fontana? Yes. And how long was he hospitalized in 2010? About a week. And when he was discharged, did he then go home? Yes. Was your mother ever hospitalized in 2010? No. Did you live with your parents in 2010? Yes. Where did they live at that time, that year? In Colton. At what address? 215 West Valley. Was your father employed in 2010? No. Was he retired from work? Yes. Did your mother work in 2010? Yes. Where did she work? Chino School District. In what capacity? A teacher. What age group or school? Well, adult education. Was it night education? No. What subjects did she teach? Consumers reports and accounting. Is she still working for the Chino School District? No. Did she resign or retire or otherwise leave? Retire. When did she retire? Last year. 2012? Yes. Do your parents still live together? Yes. In Colton? No. Where do they live now? Lytle Creek. Does either one have any employment outside the home? No. Does either one have any employment inside the home for income? No. Do you have any sisters or brothers? Yes. And how many? 2 sisters, 1 brother. What are your sisters' names? Wyona and Sherry. Winona? Uh-huh. Is that a yes? Yes. What is Wyona's date of birth? I do not know. Do you know the year? She's 3 years younger than me. What is your birth date? 5/16/77. Okay, so she's 35. I didn't want to ask that. Wyona is 3 years younger. Where does she live at this time? Idaho. Is she married? Yes. What is her married name? Wisert. How do you spell that? Is it Wisert? No, it's Wissert. I'm sorry. What's your other sister's name? Sherry. As in the beverage? I guess, yes. And her date of birth? That is, I do not know. All right, so that concludes our mid-speeds live class. Have a wonderful evening.